Hello.
Hi everyone. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited, even though this one is being terrible.
He's also very excited.
Oh my
I'm
gosh,
assuming.
so excited. Okay, you have to calm down, all right? You can be part of this. Look, you can even see yourself, all right? But you have to, if you bark, you have to leave. Oh, she laid down. Oh, now back up again. All right, who knows? Who knows? So great. Okay, so it is uh Saturday afternoon here. It is late Friday where you are?
It's Saturday night,
Oh, okay.
9 p.m.-ish.
All
Yeah.
right. So so first off, welcome everyone who is joining us, and a very special welcome to our special guest who I'm so excited to talk to, and I have so many questions. It's ridiculous. Virginia Feito, the author of Mrs. March. My book looks different than yours because it's the arc, but just pretend it looks like yours. So welcome. Yes, that's the one. That's yes.
That's the one.
That's the one. That's the one. So okay, first of all, this was one of those books where I read it, and as soon as I read it, I was like, oh, this is it. This is the book that we are doing for the month, because I immediately had so many questions and I wanted to talk to somebody immediately. And of course I couldn't, because I read it, 3 months in advance. So I couldn't even like go on to message boards and be like, right. So I was like, all right, this is it, because I want to be able to go through all the theories with people. And so we opened it up for discussion on our Facebook page, and like just so many people they were like, well, maybe it means this, well, maybe it means that, and then they had even better questions. So I have just a ridiculous amount of questions that maybe there may not even be an answer to.
Well, I'm getting nervous. I feel like I'm prepared for this exam, but I am super excited to be geeking out over, something that I've written myself. So I'm so excited. Lay it on me. I will disappoint everyone. I apologize, because the answers will probably be, but can't wait to hear about it and
right,
figure it out.
But that's totally okay.
Okay.
Let's see. All right, I'm going to turn this. Oh, and I will also say, anybody, if you have extra questions, and I'm sure that there are some, feel free to put it in the, excuse me, calm down, in the Q&A or in the chat. Is there a Q&A? Yes, there's a Q&A and there's the chat. Actually, you know what? Put it in the Q&A, because I probably won't read the chat as we're doing this, because I have started drinking and will be getting progressively tipsy as the day goes on.
Amen.
Right? It's 2:00. It's time for cheap coconut rum and Diet Coke, because this is his fancy. And also, can I just say, I was wearing bib overalls. I went to the bookstore. I was wearing bib overalls, and I was a mess. And I was like, you know what? This book is all about
this is all about appearances.
Yeah. So I'm like, I put on like an actual outfit and made a cocktail instead of just drinking beer.
Love that. I am in character as author. And so I am wearing what I assume an author would wear. And I don't usually, I don't just go shopping and wearing a suit, or like grocery shopping or whatever. And this is my Zoom corner. These are all the books I want you to know I've read. The other ones are backstage. So absolutely. Let's Mrs. March it up. I mean, that's
okay.
Awesome. Get into the mood of the artifice. I don't even know what I'm saying. Sorry.
That's good. That's good. That's perfect.
Stop me.
So we always start with the same five weird questions that we ask everybody. So the first one is, let's see if I can remember. 2 weeks into the zombie apocalypse, where would you be?
2 weeks into the zombie apocalypse. Oh, I'm sure I'd be dead by then. I'm farsighted. I don't even know if I'm farsighted or short-sighted, which should already kind of, that's a clue. I'd be dead. They would have killed me immediately. Although I don't know. I'm the person who will go check out a noise. Do you know what I mean? But then at the same time, I've been immune to COVID. my boyfriend had it, and we lived together, and I did not have it. I took like 1,000 tests, and it was never in my body at all. I don't have antibodies. It did not come into my Terminator body. So who knows? But no, I'd probably be dead. Yeah. It would have killed me immediately. And I don't exercise, and I eat, a lot of burgers. So I wouldn't like be able to escape or run.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm with you. Team dead all the way.
Yeah,
let's see. What is your favorite word?
my favorite word? Oh no. I wish I'd prepared. Um, I for some reason topple keeps coming to mind. I don't think I've ever thought about it at all as my favorite word. I don't think I've even used. I think it's definitely not in my book, but topple keeps screaming at me from the inside of my brain.
It's a fun word.
It's probably something, tippet or bibbly boobly, something that's. And I don't, but I can't. Oh, is the next question going to be what's your least favorite word?
No. What now? I want to know though. What is your least favorite?
No, because I was gonna say, I'm not that I don't have a problem with moist. I know a lot of people have a problem with moist, but I find it a very interesting word. I kind of find it very agreeable, I'll have to say. So in defense of moist.
I'm fine with it too, although I do prefer damp. It's a very British word, damp.
Yes.
Damp.
I really like perhaps as well. Mm-hmm. It makes you get into character as well, doesn't it?
Yes. Or if you're older, you can say mayhap. And then they look at you strange. They go like, oh.
Like another level. I'm not prepared for that.
Let's see. What is an unappreciated book you think people should read?
Oh my Jesus.
Just any book that you think didn't get into play.
Okay. I'm sure a lot of people haven't read this book. The Stepdaughter by Caroline Blackwood. Or Caroline Blackwood, generally. There's also The Fate of Mary Rose is my other favorite. I think she's very underappreciated, Caroline Blackwood. She was a British socialite and heir to the Guinness fortune, and had a very interesting life generally, but she's always written off as like a muse of men, including like Lucian Freud and composers and such. But she was an amazing writer, and a lot of people don't know her. Please read Caroline Blackwood. She's dark as fuck as well.
I'm putting her on my list because I'd never even heard of her.
So The Stepdaughter by Caroline Blackwood.
And the last question is, will you be my friend?
Yes.
Okay.
I already am.
Okay, good.
I'm outside your house right now as we speak.
Perfect. Actually, if you were
sorry.
I mean, that would be fine. It would be okay.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it'd be fine.
This is recorded, so you can't come at me at court later.
It would really actually be kind of awesome if you did knock on the door and I was like, "You're in Spain. What happened?"
You're in Spain and you're insane.
Okay, so Mrs. March. Okay, and I will go ahead and say, for anybody who is watching who hasn't read the whole thing, there will be spoilers because I have so many questions and we're going to get right into big spoiler territory. But I will also say that every book that I pick for the book club has to be a book that I immediately, as soon as I finish it, I'm like, I want to read that again. Because I know I'm going to have to read it again in 2 months when the book comes out. And so that I can do the discussion, and then I'm gonna have to read it again before I do the Zoom call, just because I have a bad memory and I can. So every single time I read it, I got something different from it, and every single time I read it in a different way and picked apart different things, and I'm pretty sure came to conclusions that no sane person would come to. So I'm going to get into some of my weird theories, but first, but before that, one of the biggest questions that people had, and I did as well, is the time that this was set in, because it's such a, you feel like, I'm like, oh, it's the 40s. And then I'm like, nope, it's the 60s. And I'm like, no, it's the 80s. What? So, okay. So tell us about that.
Okay, so obviously, you're not supposed to know what time it is, so it's all good if nobody got it, because there's nothing to be gotten. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to kind of screw with everyone. But I can say, because I in self-defense, that I know, because a lot of readers online were a little like, maybe the author doesn't know that that this did not exist at the time. I know what I'm doing. I mean, I don't know what I'm doing, not like in life, but like I know when things were invented. I know there were no Rubik's cubes in the 50s or whatever, and I know about the microwave. I know, and there's some stuff that nobody got as well. So it is. I can say it's way more modern, I think, than everyone suspects. And there are reasons why. I mean, I wanted it to be really. I wanted it to feel off. I wanted to feel like a fairy tale almost, where where it's timeless and you don't really know, and it's always like once upon a time. It's like, no, when was it? But you will never know. Or like a Wes Anderson movie that is never specified, like when it's, and you're like, what am I looking at? I wanted to get into the mood of that. And then, and also because the narrator is a third person, I wanted it to feel like the narrator was maybe in humiliating Mrs. March's old-fashioned, way of life by kind of getting into that voice, of like, Mrs. March went to buy the flowers, and Mrs. March was just so upset. I wanted it to feel it that way when you read it, like you were laughing at her.
Yes.
So
yeah. So okay. Well, good then, because so
it's not the 50s. Let's just say that.
Yeah. So as I was going through, I would go through and I'd be like, okay, so when was and I'd look and I'd be like, when was the first audiobook? Oh, that was in the 70s. Okay. And then when was the first? And so after I read it the first time, I was like, okay, well, maybe I just missed it. And then the second time I was like, this is intentional and it is making me very uncomfortable on purpose. Yes. Like when Hitchcock does, like, the screen is slightly tilted, but not enough that you notice it, but just enough that you're like, something is off and I can't trust this, but I don't know why I can't trust it.
Or Hitchcock's zoom, the vertigo zoom that he did, where it's going away, but it's coming closer as well. Yeah, anything that gets me, compared to Hitchcock is, yes, I meant to do that, absolutely.
Well, good. Good. Okay.
I'm very smart, just like Hitchcock. No, but I'm so glad that you felt off and unnerved. And I really liked Unnerving. There were a lot of very, upset readers I saw online, on Goodreads, like, this is a mistake. Like, I think one said, I hope the author will fix it in edits, because it's on an arc. And they were like, it's not clear, just so the author knows, it's not clear when this is set, and she should really like revise that in edits. And I was like, too late. Whoops. But I'm really glad that it felt off. That's exactly kind of what I wanted to do. And also, I mean, if I'm being honest, there's also a little bit of like a practicality. I just don't, it's not very romantic, is it? Like Mrs. March, typed into her, Google app or whatever. It's kind of, it's like, no, can't we just, is there anything else she could do? She got a clean.
Well, and what I also really liked is, so it's, it's a third person narrator, but it's also a third person that seems to be inside the mind of Mrs. March. And so in a lot of ways, as I would read it, I would be like, is this Mrs. March, like, not being able to say that we're in the future, because she's still sort of caught in the past in many, many different ways. Okay, so I am going to jump into to my theory right off the top, because everything else sort of hinges on it. And so you can just say like, nope, you're totally wrong. And then I'll go, okay, I have no questions.
Oh, no. Oh, shit. Okay.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Either way, even if I'm totally wrong. Okay.
Okay.
So the first time I read it, I was like, okay, this woman has gone through, like, really traumatic events. She didn't get the right kind of help. She has, a bad family background, and here her family was too afraid to get her help. And so it caused her to have this sort of, split personality kind of thing. And it's not really her fault. The second time I read it, I was like,
screw that bitch.
Yeah, I was like, this bitch is a serial killer, like, for real. And I think she's killed a lot of people because, and here's my theory is, I think Mr. March was not even close to the first person that she's murdered. I think she's murdered lots of people. And here's what I think. I think that, okay, so when, first of all, she's constantly fantasizing about like, I could put arsenic in all of the cups right now at this dinner party. And then she fantasizes about like, oh, even if my husband is a serial killer, I could actually go out and find victims for him. And she bites the maid. And there was this point when she's with her sister and brother-in-law, and the sister kind of brings it up, and Mrs. March is like, ha ha ha, oh yeah, apparently I used to eat maids. And the sister is like, bitch, that is not all you did. You did what? That was not. And Mrs. March is like, ha ha ha. Anyway, other story. And so I'm like, okay, I think she might have murdered the maid, maybe not. But then here's the other one is that okay, let's calm down, Dottie. She's getting very excited. So when the whole the guy in Spain, the first time I read it, I was like, well, she was assaulted and she never got treatment for it and everything. The second time I read it, I was like, okay, she never says that. What she actually says is that she wants to go down with them and all this stuff, and that something happened and it felt like a dream later, like a cautionary tale, and that maybe she just dreamt it, which is the same thing that sort of happens later with when she kills Mr. March, and it's like, no, I don't think that happened. And I'm like, what if she killed that guy too? What if she's been murdering people this whole time?
Since she was a kid. Oh my God. This is
the thing. And so when I'm reminding you of the things that you wrote, remember when you wrote, so there's this line where you said that so much of this happened because of what happened in Spain, but the only thing she says is the devil got inside of her. And I was like, oh, like at first I was like, oh, because that's like a sexual assault thing. And then I'm like, or is it like the devil got inside of me and I murdered this guy and maybe he deserved it. I mean, maybe he was like an asshole. Maybe
he was an asshole or assaulting
exactly.
her.
Yes. Yeah. And then she was just like, oh, ha ha ha, guess what? I murdered that guy, but let's just pretend that didn't happen. And we'll go on to the next thing. And also, like, I may have murdered my maid. At the very least, I tried to eat her. And she's constantly, doing all of these things where I'm like, is she a serial killer? Like,
serial killer. This is like, I mean, this is the best theory. His theory is better than the book, to be honest. I think I should have done that. I think that's what, yes, that is, you are correct. That is the,
I got it.
That was it. You got it. You're the only one. And now if you don't mind, I will go and tell everyone this. I'm calling NPR after this.
Okay.
That's amazing. I love that. I wonder, but do you think if she was a serial killer that she would her sister know about it? Like would she have received treatment for the murder? Do you know what I mean? Because she was underage, so maybe she would have gone to like a facility, or I don't know what would have, or maybe she would never have told anybody because it was at night on a beach, and she, so maybe nobody would have figured it out.
I think, well, okay, so she saw therapy the first time when she was a kid, and she talks about how like all of a sudden the maid disappears, which, the first time I read it, I was like, oh yeah, because the mom doesn't want to have to deal with it, and she was just like, oh, let's just make it go away. And then the second time I'm like, maybe she did something really awful, and the parents were like, let's just cover it up. And then they took her to therapy the first time, and she was like, oh yeah, I ate her and stabbed her. And they were like, what? You can't go to therapy anymore. You're not supposed to say, oh no. And then she just continued.
With Alma, I'm sure she did something to that woman that wasn't just like biting her a little bit, which is still, horrible and gross, but I think she did something fucked up. And her, that's why her sister's like, wait a minute, like, do you remember, right? She absolutely probably did something, and she would definitely have done something along the lines of biting. So maybe not, I don't know if cannibalism, but like definitely something to do with eating skin.
With
yeah, exactly. with
okay.
consuming person somehow. Yeah.
And here's the other one is the she's like she's dancing with the boyfriend who she's like pretty sure is actually the one that murdered the girl.
The woman, Sylvia. Yeah.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's gone. And she's like, it feels like I just dreamed that. And I'm like, that's exactly what she said about the other one. So did she also murder the boyfriend? For real. I think
not in the middle of the bar. Do you think she like lured
but they
him out?
closed down the bar, right? You were like, they danced until the bar closed down.
That's true.
So
She was like holding him up, like his dead corpse up, as she like stabbed him with a shard from the
well,
wine.
she gets him outside. I think she gets him outside.
But this is a very wily person you're portraying. Are we sure Mrs. March is, up to that? I mean, I'm again, I mean,
Okay.
and I'm never
March.
going to say no to any theory, because this is the best theory ever, and I want it to be true. And I will, like, on future like edits of the book, I will accommodate this theory further. So like, and I feel like, yeah, like American Psycho. Yeah, I mean, did she do it? But what was I gonna say? Yeah, but although there's just one thing that makes me wonder if she was a serial killer, I'm guessing she'd be a psychopath. Would not feel empathy, would not feel fear. And Mrs. March just cares so very much. She doesn't care maybe for other people, but she cares about their opinions so very deeply. I wonder if that would contradict the psychopathy. I don't know.
I have an answer for that too.
Oh my.
Yeah. I have thought this out.
You have thought this through.
Oh my gosh, it is ridiculous. Okay, so it was not actually Mrs. March. It was her split personality, Kiki, who goes back to the Russian nesting dolls and every time that her son would be like, "Mommy, are you dead?" Or and because she was kind of dead when I think Kiki was kind of the one that would take over and be like, all right, especially because, and I have to say, I don't know if you did this intentionally, but so I'd never seen this painting of I've seen the girl with the pearl earring.
The famous one,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
The pretty one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I had never seen, it wasn't until I, read your thing about how she was, kind of odd looking. And I was like, really? She was beautiful. And I look it up and I was like, oh,
right.
that, she looks.
That other one.
Yeah. There's something very
here in my notes. I have my Mrs. March cheat sheet. And just in case anybody doesn't know her, this is Kiki. This is the painting that she sees. And I mean, it's a beautiful painting, but it's just very weird and off-putting, isn't it? She doesn't have any eyebrow. I don't know. It's not like the girl with the pearl earring who's like seductively like pursing her lips. I don't know. And she has a very weird smirk on her face, and her forehead is just way too high. And it's a very small painting if you see it. It's in the Met, and but the frame is golden and like very baroque and very large, and she's very small, and it's just really weird. It's very strange. So I'm really glad that you got to meet her. And the Kiki identity is a huge, I mean, this whole book is about identity, right? So it's kind of a case study, I guess, in who Mrs. March is. It's like an exploration of who the hell this woman really is. And Kiki is a huge part of it. It could be a split personality, as you say. It could be her real personality, that the one she murdered in the bathtub. It could be, because Kiki is the one who seduced this man, right, or killed him, if you will, if you prefer.
Something.
But it's the conversation Mrs. March has with the man on the beach it's very out of character, I think.
Very.
March, she's being very, and she wants to be a writer, which is weird because she never ever suggests anything like that. And then she marries a writer, which is interesting. I said of my own work, well done, Virginia. But I'm sorry, it's very pretentious. But so definitely there is something there. Split personality, or continue with your theory so that we can get to the bottom of this.
Right, exactly. Yes. Let me tell you about what you were writing subconsciously. Let me tell you about your subconscious novel.
I'm gonna write it down.
In the end, Virginia's gonna be like, wait, am I a murderer?
Exactly.
Let me see your bathtub right now. Is there a body or a dead pigeon in there?
What? I don't know. The sound just,
Let me
sorry.
speak to Kiki.
No,
Um,
no.
here's something that I loved about, because I did a deep dive on Kiki, on the actual painting itself, and the whole, because I was like, okay, but why does she look so odd compared to most people that you would see in portraits? And I, found all of these critics who were like, well, we think maybe it's because she wasn't an actual person, she was an idea of a person.
I thought
And
she was
so
the daughter, the painters. I thought she was his daughter.
I saw one thing that said that, and then
Okay,
another that said,
you might have made it up. Oh, that would explain. Oh, this is so interesting.
yes, and that
Like
it's different
fragments of different
pieces.
people. Oh,
Exactly.
amazing. Oh, I'd
Which
love to know
makes
that
sense with fragments, and it's not a real
one.
person, and it's, a fragmented personality.
Oh,
And
I
then,
love this. I
right?
hadn't read the theory. I thought it was, scholars were talking about how it was probably his daughter or whatever. Because I guess they're like, because he would never have painted anybody else otherwise. This, I guess. Um,
And then the other art thing that I read about it was somebody saying that they think the whole painting was an exercise in seeing beauty where there is no beauty, and accepting true flaws as beauty, and that goes back to Mrs. March, because she's
yeah.
so like,
She's so
everyone must
accepting, isn't she, of her
oh,
flaws?
so accepting. She's
Yeah,
so like, let it all hang out. I'm gonna be honest and
I
not
love
care about
that.
what people think.
Mm, absolutely. But Kiki would have.
Oh
Kiki would
yeah.
have liked herself, and would have grown to be a mature adult. And but yeah, she killed her. She killed that bitch. The
Exactly.
idea of her personality. Um, that's
So
so interesting.
the okay, the so Mrs. March herself, it's not until the very end that we find, like, I think it's like the last word, right? That we actually find out what her name is.
Yeah, yeah.
Why did you make that
Why
choice?
are you so weird, Virginia?
I love it. It's a great choice.
Thanks. Okay, so throughout the entire book, it's Mrs. March because she's defined by her husband, and kind of reflecting back at him, kind of all of her personality traits or identity or what she thinks it should be, and it's always revolving around him. It's always his friends, it's always his dinner gatherings, it's always his thing. And it would have been her father before, and now it would be him. And the only time, like the very first time that and then it was Kiki. She spoke through Kiki, and Kiki was like not quite her, but she was getting there. And then this is the only time that it's really her. This is her. That when unfortunately it's killing your husband, but that's the only time that it's just her, 100%.
Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do,
That's right. That's when she wakes up, and that's her.
So,
At no point before that. She kind of stumbles towards it a little bit. Because I remember when my boyfriend read it, he said something like, when she goes to Maine and she like throws on like a like an old raggedy blanket that belongs to like a dog or something. He was like, Mrs. March would never, she's so prim, she would never do that. And I'm like, but she only ever does things if people are looking, right? So she only reacts maybe terribly to things, or she's only upset about like dirt or whatever if she thinks somebody's going to judge her for it. If she's alone in a cabin, nobody knows she's there, who knows, maybe she's a completely different person.
yes.
So long-winded way of saying that's just the only point when it's just her. Unfortunately, it's the very end, last line, because the whole book is just an exploration. Who is she? Who is she? Who is she? And then it's like, oh, it's her. Bye. The end.
So on that same subject, so somebody had pointed out to me, they were like, okay, so why on the cover, why is the A red? And at the time I was like, first of all, I didn't even recognize that. So I was like, okay, good job. I don't know. And then somebody else was like, oh, the A is for Agatha. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Because in my head, I was like, maybe it's like the Scarlet A, because she's like she feels like she's in the character of the horror.
Right. Yeah, or the rumor. Yeah, the woman kind of victim of rumors. That would be amazing. I mean, we'd have to ask the amazing designer Jaya Maselli, but I did get a hint when I first saw the cover. My editor did add a line like the red A is a nod to Mrs. March's first name, and so that's a good catch. Really
Love
good
it.
catch.
Love
that.
it.
That's amazing.
Okay, so the son, what did he do to that girl?
Right, right. So I know I was debating with myself, like, should I say, because I really wanted to make something up like that was really horrible. But then it was also like, I don't know, I think I was being pretentious, and like it was a nod to the turn of the screw, and you never know what Miles does in the school that gets him kicked out. And just so, but I was wrestling with myself. So I know it's sexual. And actually there used to be a line in there that I might save for the movie now, but where the head that I took out eventually, but it was too on the nose, where the headmistress asked Mrs. March, like was he like, is his father maybe like a gynecologist or like an OBG, like does he, just so, and so Mrs. March would be like, what? No, why would you say that? So it's something sexual. I'm thinking some kind of insertion, something like that, with some sort of foreign object. I'll stop there, but yeah, something along those lines was what I was imagining. But I'd love to hear what people thought, if they assumed it was sexual or not. I mean, I'm thinking he's been reading a lot of newspaper clippings about Sylvia and she, all the details of how she was raped or whatever, and he kind of maybe tried to act it out in some way, or he could see his parents were both so intrigued by the story, he probably thought, there must be something to be admired in this story, so I'll just do it myself, I guess.
I kept going. I was like, at first I thought, I was like, okay, well, it's maybe something like that, but then I kept getting these hints of like that he was gay, and that the mom wanted to do anything that she could to make him like to not look at that, because that I think to her would be like worse than being a rapist or a murderer, to be like, oh my God. And
I also think he's gay. I don't know why though, and I didn't like consciously like write hints about him being gay or anything at all. I also think that exact thing. I think I think he's gay, and I think his mom is gonna freak out if she, worse than ever. So
I know, I was like, don't come home. Go live with the neighbor. Don't come home. Go get therapy. You obviously need some help. Accept yourself. Go be gay and adorable, but stop doing bad things, and don't become a serial killer.
I know, but it will make for a very interesting sequel. So
yes.
So do those things, but also don't.
So here's a weird question before I get into, because there's people that have other questions. But have you read Shirley Jackson Hangs a Man?
Yes, I've read all.
This reminded me so much of that.
There's a lot of Hangs a Man in it. I was worried I was ripping off Hangs a Man, to be honest, with like the whole, abuse in the woods, and that there's that line that has haunted me for years, ever since I read it, which is I think it was like, my God, is he going to touch me or something? I think that's the line that it was burned into my psyche. I read Hangs a Man, and I read it kind of like even skimming a little bit, because it was getting to me a lot, and that line, I wanted to get that in there somehow. I'm sorry if I ripped it off, but I swear it wasn't my intention. I was just trying to an inspiration. And Shirley Jackson is probably the writer that has most inspired Mrs. March overall. Her short stories, especially, there's a lot of nods to her. And actually one chapter begins with the very first line of The Demon Lover, which is, she had not slept well. And a lot of hints in the whole dentist. There's a whole short story by Shirley Jackson at the dentist, and Hangs a Man. Absolutely.
Okay, that makes me feel so much better, because I thought I was insane, because as I was reading, and I'm like, not a lot of people have read that book, right? Like, it was not a book that was it's not even really totally finished. I mean, it was.
But if not, we should also add it to the list, to the question you asked me at the beginning of.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
As I was reading it the whole time, I kept thinking this in so many ways is like if Hangs the Man had happened and Mrs. March had gone a totally different way.
Oh,
If
right.
you know, it was like the paths
Right.
converge where
Yeah,
one does this and one does the other. And yeah,
absolutely. This is how you don't do it. This is how you're not supposed to do it.
exactly, exactly. It was like a good companion book. So,
Absolutely.
so I have one more question for you before I go to the other questions. Do you see Mrs. March as a villain or a victim?
Both. Both. I will take the late a recent movie Joker as an example. I think she's unredeemable at the end of the book. I don't, and I wouldn't want to justify anything she does because I mean this is cold-blooded murder. Because I've had readers like, well, but yes, but he cheated on her, and I'm like, yes, however, you know, it's different. I feel so. I think unredeemable, unjustifiable, but also she's a victim of her, you know, upbringing and just so much distance and coldness and abuse and in so many little different ways constantly throughout her life. Absolutely, but also Jesus, what a bitch. You know, go get help.
Yeah,
uh I mean, and actually, you know, I put a lot of mirrors in the book and a lot of reflections constantly throughout the book. And it was kind of me trying to like make her look at herself, like, look at yourself. And she's always refusing to look at her reflection and she's always avoiding mirrors, you know, and then the hairdresser at the end takes her to a mirror twice, you know, like they took her to the mirror and that line is in there, you know, repeatedly. And it's not bad editing. It's me like making it clear she is refusing. Like I am giving her all this help, and she's refusing to accept it. So fuck you. So that's what you get. But also, you know, how could she know? She's been taught to do that for her entire life, and then the only few times going back to the conversation that she has with that man on the beach, you know, that's the only time that she kind of maybe is a little bit more lively and she's being a little bit more herself and she's being a little bit more cocky, and she gets kind of like punished for it in a way. So she's like, why would she ever do it again, you know? And so, you know, I do feel really sorry for her, but you know, can't, she should go to prison for sure.
yes,
Sure.
yeah,
Deservedly.
yes, yes.
What did
Let's.
you think? Did you think she was a victim or a villain?
The first time I thought she was a very unlikable victim. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the second time I thought she was both. The third time I was like straight villain. Yeah, the third time I was like straight, and I was like, even like when she wouldn't look in the mirrors, I'm like, that's because she has dysphoria because Kiki is looking out and going, that's not the way I'm supposed to look. And she's like, oh, this is awkward. I'm not going to see my face. I'm going to see
I
Kiki's
love it.
face. Yeah.
That's really cool. I mean, yeah, and I mean, Kiki was also my way of kind of describing Mrs. March physically without really describing her physically. She says that she looks like her, but I'm loving these theories. When you read it a fourth time, maybe like you'll come back to me like Jonathan doesn't exist, and it all takes place in like Cuba, and but it's all in her head, and I'm going to prove it to you, and I will believe it, and I will believe you, I am
March
looking.
isn't real. This is all just it's all just a book idea that Mr. March had, and then he erases it all at the
Right.
end, starts again, and that's part two.
That's interesting. This is Mr. March's book. Yeah, amazing.
Oh, but let's see. Okay, so dun dun dun. I see the mask behind you. Is that the one that Mr. March bought for Mrs. March, or does it
Oh
have
my
a
gosh,
different
yes.
story?
Wow, amazing catch. Yeah. Daniel, this is amazing. This is the mask. This is exactly the mask. I
Oh
mean,
my,
how freaky is this?
that is fantastic.
Whenever children come to my house, I always put this on, and their parents are like, oh no, not the mask. This is what Mrs. March wears around her apartment when she's alone. And also one of the Mrs. Marches that appear at the end is a Greek chorus. This is what she looks like.
Oh my God, I love it. I
I
love it.
love it.
And I love that it's the Greek chorus. Because for me, like I was like, okay, Greek chorus, and then I was like, are they the Fates because they rip apart
as
you
well.
know?
Yeah. That's another way of looking at it. So great
Oh,
catch. I love that.
so many. I loved, I think for a lot of people, you know, it takes like a specific type of person to love a book that is open enough that you can go like, oh, maybe this, maybe that, maybe. And for me, that is my favorite because I lived in this book for like a week. I would just be like, I wonder if, and I'd like go on in some like rabbit hole of like, I wonder if this, I wonder if that. And so I'm basically like I don't know if there's a Mrs. March head, but I'm a
Unfortunately,
Mrs.
I'm
March head.
sorry you had to go through that, but yeah, and I mean, I did kind of write this book as like a vengeance because I have a lot of anxiety and I have OCD and I have purely obsessive OCD, and I think I wanted to write a book in OCD so that because I only just a couple of years ago realized that it's kind of hard to live in my head, mostly because people around me have been like, please stop, and help. We don't want to live in your head. So this was like my therapy, like, well, everyone else is gonna live in my head, and it's my revenge. So welcome. This is what it's like. I wanted you to feel after a chapter like how I feel after one day of just existing. Um, Everything's like, oh my god, should I have tipped higher? Like, are they gonna think that should I go back to that place? Oh my god, I ordered water. Do I want water? Do I even like water? What is water? I mean, so sorry, but also you know cool.
Yes. Let's see. Okay, so one of the really just the dog's butt. There we go. Um, one of the theories, not the theories, but the like the themes that I kind of saw over and over again was this idea of consumption, like the eating the maid, and then the I think it was like the father-in-law gets his pieces cut off piece by piece, and then when they get trapped in the house, she's like, will we eat our son or will our son eat us? And
Yeah.
there's so many.
There's a lot of food as well described very rigorously, and it's purposeful. Well, first of all, I love describing food for I don't know. I think I read Angela Carter when I was too young, and it got to me. But I love it, and yeah, absolutely, consumption is absolutely a theme. I think I wanted to talk a little bit about like the things that eat away at one throughout life and how different they're. So, because like obsession is obviously a huge theme in this book, along with identity. I think those are the two biggest ones. And obsession, it just fascinates me how people obsess over such different things and like the little things that will eat away at a person, and literally or
Yeah,
metaphorically. Yeah, so I'm really glad you noticed that.
yeah.
The eating and the food and the very
That's
specific
that's
description.
interesting too about the like I didn't even think of it in the eating away. Like to me, it was well two things. One was when I was younger, I had an eating disorder, and so often I found myself relating to Mrs. March about like
Mhm.
that like the where she would only have a bite when her sister would have a bite,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the yeah, and all of the her mother's friends who have been on diets since the day they were born, and so that obsession with consumption while consuming nothing really.
exactly. And also and then consumption as well, like objects, obviously materialism and the clothing
Yes.
and she's so jealous and envious of her neighbor's possessions and um, materialism generally, and not refusing to focus on what's really important, which is what's on the inside that counts.
Exactly.
Will not do it.
The one of the things that I thought was really interesting is how often, in spite of the fact that so much of this felt like to me, where I was like, oh, you're in the 40s, you're in the 50s, you're in the, but there was so much that felt very on the nose now of like, influencers and this curated, and like everything looks perfect. And there's a part where you explain how many times she threw a throw onto the couch to see to
That it looked
to make it look like she
casual.
casually tossed it on. Oh my God. I loved that so much.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that was absolutely one of my, I even wrote it down in my little book, like if they ever ask you, before I even like written the book, but like absolutely the whole Instagram specifically. I mean, we're living in a, because a lot of people are like, well, this can't be nowadays. Like who has time for these kinds of, problems? And it's like, bitch, like we live in a society where only just now there are jobs that whose literal, they just serve to influence. So they're just appearances. Their jobs dedicated completely to appearing a certain way. Not even the Stepford wives had that back then, like that. This is a job they will pay you really good money for nowadays. Which just to me seems mind-boggling, which is why I don't have Instagram, by the way. I feel like it would consume me. I feel like I would be one of those people. Like I'm just on this Zoom call. This is just so like fake and like, put on that I'd rather not go down that road. So
what I always do is I'm always like, look, see, it's color coordinated. It looks, and then I'm like, and then also if you look over here, it's just stacks of shit and books and it's just fucking mess, like, yeah.
No, my entire house is actually very, very pretty and controlled. But again, because I'm like always waiting for someone to like appear and appreciate it, I guess. And it's not my fault, okay? It's the era that we live in. But,
exactly right.
But absolutely, right. I mean, it's relevant to today.
It is. There were so many where I was just like, and I would take little pictures and I would text them to my friends and be like, who does this remind you of? Who does this remind you? And I was just like, but every once in a while I would be like, oh damn, I've done that before,
Absolutely. Oh gosh, I think we all have. I mean, well, I hope we all have. I mean, the way that I talk to myself sometimes in the mirror, like, oh my God, look at that. And I'm like, oh my God, you're fat. Like, stop eating burgers. And then, I'll catch myself and I'll bring it down to what Mrs. March does.
Right.
But I hope we all do that.
That's what makes us human.
Right.
So, okay, so here's just a question that may not have a real answer. Did she ever actually read the book, Mr. March's book?
I don't think I think she like glosses over it in that third chapter when she's seeing things that are making her feel like it's her and she snaps it shut, right? And then she never like really truly reads it. She's too scared to read it, I think, I'd say.
Yeah, every time. So the first time that I read it like that, and the second time I read it, I was like, well, there's several times that she does open it up and sort of reads it, but then she, rips it apart and she does different stuff and she steals it from different people. And so in my head, I was like, maybe every time she reads it, Kiki takes over. Kiki is like, okay. And so she never remembers it.
And she forgets. I mean, that would make absolute sense because she keeps repressing large chunks of the day to the point where at one point she doesn't even remember what she's been doing before that. Which is probably that whatever Martha has seen is probably that's when that happened, probably. So that would make absolute sense that she'd read it and forgot it. Absolutely.
So this is being made into a movie now, right?
That's correct. I hope that would be a cruel joke, but bravo. But yes, being done into a movie with Blumhouse and Elizabeth Moss.
That is so exciting.
Loves the book. I know. Again, I think I made it up. I think I Mrs. Marched it, and I'm just myself from like an account like Elizabeth Moss. And everyone's quoting her, and Elizabeth Moss is like, who the fuck is Virginia Feito? But and I love her so much, and I can't believe it. I mean, I remember editors were asking me like, who would you picture as like way before the just as the book was being sold to publishers, and I got that question a couple of times. What actress would you see? And I said Elizabeth Moss every time. I know it's true, but it's true. Because and then she'd done Shirley around that time as well. Again, really, and I love her in that film. And I thought she's the only actress I can think of who can go that dark and and could go that ugly and love it.
Yeah.
Because someone said, boy, I'm gonna be sorry if if it doesn't have anything, you know, if it's not Elizabeth Moss and it's whoever I'm gonna about to diss. But somebody said Kate Blanchett, and I thought, I would die. But gosh, I just think if you're that beautiful, I think you'd react. You couldn't help but be different, a little bit different. I mean, that affects you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
In different ways. And I'm absolutely not calling Elizabeth Moss ugly, by the way. You should see her on like a regular day in like her hoodie. She's like surrounded by like like light. She just glows.
Yes.
But I've seen, you know, we've seen her in Handmaid's Tale, and she's like, she's gonna go for it. She's gonna
She's
be
got
like
range and she's not afraid. Exactly.
she's
Yes.
gonna be like, you know, her eyelashes are gonna like fall off, and it's gonna be really weird and awesome. So I'm so happy. Can't wait.
I love it. I love it. Oh, so this is a very good question from Marianne. Is her increasing mania related to the root canal and possible sepsis?
Oh, interesting. I
Very.
mean, I think absolutely the dentist is the scene where she it's like the big kaboom, and it affects her absolutely. I wasn't thinking sepsis. I was thinking more, again, this is the most boring answer ever, but it's like it's probably a mix of, you know, the gas that they use, and then the just generally the pain, the physical trauma of it, and then what she's been taking probably reacts badly with whatever, you know, the way the gas are at the dentist. But sepsis would be very interesting, and it is absolutely true that the dentist is what what takes us to the third act, what makes her murder her husband.
That is interesting. And it, you know, as I read it, I again read it in two different ways. First time I read it, when I thought of her more as a victim, I was like, oh, it brought her over the top because there's this man doing something to her that she can't really control.
And then she can't really remember it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so I'm like, this is what, like, it's bringing all that up, and she's never been able to deal with it. And so that's what it is. And then the third time that I read it, I was like, no, I think this is just like, maybe it's just like a metaphor for the rot that she has inside of her.
That's true as well. That's true as well. And all of the imagery of like the devil getting inside, or like the rot, there's a lot of rotting things. And then in the end, when she realizes she's killed her husband, and she runs throwing up across the hall, and she goes into the guest bathroom and she vomits black bile, which is obviously, you know, physically impossible. But and so she feels like something dislodges like inside of her, like a stone, like she feels like a stone coming out, or something coming out of her that has been in her for a long time, and she finally throws it up. And that was all absolutely like a metaphor about the rot, you know, the things that are rotting inside, and that she finally gets out, which again takes us to the Agatha, which is why she's free of it now, technically, and now she'll go kill a bunch of people in prison, probably.
Like you do. I mean,
oh my God. Green is the new black. Is gonna be the sequel.
Right? You know, it's funny as when I wrote kind of a thing about like, you know, this is a dark book, you know, is it a little darker than what I normally choose, but I think you're really gonna like it. But you know, here you should kind of know, you know, that it's gonna go in some dark places. And I was like, if you are the kind of person who like your idea of relaxation is true crime, you're gonna be like, this is a great book. And it was funny because there were like so many people were like, okay, sign me up. I now am joining this book club. Whatever. Yes, I'm in.
The trigger warning was what seduced me.
Right.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is. I wonder why that is, that, you know, and in particular, women, we are sort of attracted to these, you know, the dark stories. What are your thoughts on that?
Do you think it's especially women? I had never thought of that before.
Well, if you go to like say My Favorite Murder conference or convention, it's 99% women. And when it comes to like true crime, you know, when it comes to their audience, because I have a lot of friends who do that, and they were like, oh yeah, it's definitely like at least 80%. Yeah. And for me, I was like, is it all about like control, about taking back those things that we're afraid of?
I'm thinking absolutely. I'm thinking it probably what comes to mind is the same way that people love going on roller coasters and feeling a very controlled fear, is probably why. I mean, it's always us, isn't it? The victims of these people, and it's always, you know, it's always men killing us, and and raping us. And I'm alone in my apartment right now, and I'm
Oh, but it's 9 o'clock at night and you've been drinking. No.
I know, right? And I'll probably be a little freaked out later when I go get a glass of water, like, oh dear. And that's probably why. Because we can control it in the same way that we feel, fear of death when we're on a roller coaster. It's especially women who are the victims. So I think that's probably why. And and I'm also obsessed with it. And like my motto is like, if there's no murder or incest or abuse in it, I'm not reading it. That's my, which isn't true. I love Disney movies and I love The Sound of Music. So, but I'm very especially addicted and obsessed with very, very dark books. And it's almost like a challenge, like, see how dark we can go. Like, can you haunt me? Can you
yes.
Like, what are we like? Try me.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly the same. And I think so much of that is not only, being able to, see on the other side of the darkness, but also like, I think we all have our own darkness, and it allows us to sort of touch it and see it and like examine it, but without it hurting as much, where you can be like, oh, this reminds me of this terrible thing about me that I'm dealing with, that I've had to deal with. And you can, in some ways, I think it's very therapeutic in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. And very fascinating. I mean, it just fascinates me how a person can do these things. I can't even, it sounds ridiculous. Like, I don't know, part of me doesn't believe it. Like, no, Ted Bundy was not
yeah.
thing. Like, Jeffrey Dahmer didn't really exist. Like, you loser, and they made you believe that. That's like a unicorn. There's no way. It's just fascinating. Like, how did this happen? How did this person feel feelings inside? What was going on? Why? Oh gosh, yes, I have to write more character studies.
Exactly. Well, I cannot believe like, for real, we have gone over time, and I apologize because I took up your whole hour and I just couldn't stop talking.
I'm having so much fun. Sorry, I haven't been reading the comments, but thank you so much, everyone. Only Murders in the Building, I think somebody is mentioning, which I'm obsessed with as well.
Is it good? I haven't seen it yet.
Yes, I mean, it's adorable. I love it. It's not good. It's like the Disney darkness that we were, but hey, it's so sweet. I love it.
Oh, it's so good. I just got a subscription to Shudder yesterday because I was like, I need more horror in my life.
It's not enough. Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, I love this comment about her seeing the cockroaches, reminding you of the out damn spot, which you also referenced in the book. And also, I just want to say that goes back to when Lady Macbeth that said that? Didn't she say it? Because she had blood on her hands of old murders.
Right.
So
future murders. But
yes.
But I'm not gonna crush that theory because it's the best thing that's happened in my career, probably. But absolutely. And since we were talking about the darkness, I think the darkest thing I've ever seen where I was like physically upset, like I was very nauseous, was The Keepers, I think. And no, watch The Keepers.
Okay.
Watch The Keepers, Jenny.
I'm writing it down right now.
Documentary. It's the thing that has most upset me watching in my life. It's a bit too.
Yes, I have seen it. Oh,
happy. Okay, and so fun fact: the murder of Sylvia in the book is inspired by Sister Kathy's murder. It was, I think, very similar. The description of like blunt force to the head and underwear found nearby but not on her, and all of those details, and that was inspired by that. And we never really truly found out what happened to Sister Kathy, nor will you find out what happened to Sylvia. So screw you. That's just life the way you've screwed me.
Exactly. Yes, I saw that. I think it's on Netflix right now. If y'all want to watch it, it is very good.
Yeah,
very disturbing.
The Jinx as well. Oh my god.
Oh my god, it's so good.
Last thing. It's like, who is this man? And he lived in like a mansion, and like he watched his mother like falling from a window and committing suicide. What the hell? You can't make this shit up.
Like for real, when we were watching The Jinx, it was years ago when it came out, and my husband and I were laying in bed and we're watching one of the last episodes, and the craziness, the crazy, And I literally fell out of the bed. I just fell out and laid on the floor, and I was like, did that just happen?
I can't believe that happened. I'm like, this has to be editing somehow.
This cannot be true.
Did he just confess to this?
So crazy.
Amazing.
Yeah, watch the Jinx, y'all, if you haven't watched the Jinx.
Everyone.
Oh my gosh. And the staircase. Is it called the staircase?
Yes, but the staircase scene was so frustrating, right? Because it was just too long. It was like, come on. Like if a genie came up and was like, you get one wish, you know, I would not ask for help. I would not ask for like money. No, I would just want to know, like, either Madeline McCann, Sister Kathy, the staircase dude, like, give me the answers. Like, who?
Me too. Oh my god. I'm going to get to wherever I get to, and I'm going to be like, tell me what happened to John Benet Ramsey, because I have theories. Yes. And they'll be like, we've heard about you and your theories. You tried to explain a book to the author. Calm down. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
This was so much fun.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I've had so much fun, and not just because I'm drunk.
Yeah, both because I'm drunk and because this was fun, and this was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, so good. Let's see okay, so next month, y'all, is, wait, I have it here in my book. Where is it? The Inheritance of Orcadia Divina. And you all probably have gotten this already, unless you're getting it shipped media rate, in which case the post office sucks, and sorry. And yours is hardcover and not weird like mine. But you're really gonna love it, and it's fantastic. And it's also dark, but not the same kind of dark. It's more like magical realism dark, and it's really lovely and Ecuadorian and very, very good. And I just picked October's book, but I don't think we've confirmed it yet, so I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. But very soon you'll get an email and you'll hear about October's book, which is like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about it. And I also just read November's book, which I'm also waiting to see if we get approval on. It is really good, and now I'm like screwed because I don't have anything for December. So if anybody is out there and is like, oh, a great book is coming out in December and you want to tell me about it, tell me, because right now I have two in my pile, and I try to read like 15 a month before to kind of go like, which is the best one of what's coming out. And
that's amazing. That sounds amazing. You could always go to like back to Christmas Carol and just like, for Christmas, and do like a special where like everyone joins in, and there's a lot of darkness in that book, and there's like a lot of weird theories that you could bring to the table, Jenny.
Exactly. And I could get Charles Dickens to Zoom with me, and I'd be like, let me tell you what the real Ghost of Christmas Future is. I'm going to mansplain A Christmas Carol to Charles Dickens. This is
I would attend. I mean, I would love to see that.
What if you're Charles Dickens? You dress up as Charles Dickens.
Yes, our talents are, on the same level, obviously, and I would love to.
We need to do that. We're drinking.
Charles Dickens. I'm drinking, and I'm making so many promises, Jenny.
I'm not going to remember this.
Brain exploding, across the ocean. But I would love it. So count me in. I'm here for the Dickens impersonation. I could even get dressed up. Oh my God.
All right. It's going to be the best.
It's going to happen.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being here. And thank you to everybody.
Thanks everyone so much. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for nerding out with me. I'm so happy. I didn't even want people to even necessarily like the book, but just the fact that it affected people is just the best thing ever. So I'm so glad. So glad. Hope it haunts you forever. Thank you.
It will. Bye.
Bye.